Hello and good evening. It's Axiom Flux time. It's season 4, episode 7 of Axiom Flux, and it's the 24th of December 2017, Christmas Eve. And we've got some guests on the show tonight. We've got with us the infamous STAV, and we've got PJ with us. And tonight's topic of conversation is about something I had absolutely no idea. Well, I knew what it was, but it's an acronym called PESCO. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. PESCO. It's about the EU's European Army. So this is tonight's topic. So I'm going to say hello to my guests. Stav. Hi, Stav. How you doing, mate?
Jeff, all right, how's it going? Merry Christmas and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, cheers, Stav. Merry Christmas to you too, mate. And PJ. Hi, PJ. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, good stuff, Jeff. Hey, Stav. Season's greetings, guys.
Season's greetings.
Season's greetings.
Indeed, indeed. Eat, drink, and be merry. But we've got an interesting topic of conversation for you all tonight out there. Like I said, the topic is PESCO. Now, I wondered what that was at first. It sounded to me like a type of pasta sauce or something. No, I didn't have a clue till somebody mentioned it, and they said this is about the EU Army, the European Union, the army that they're putting together, which is. I've heard about it before, actually, the army, but I didn't know it's called PESCO. Now I don't know what PESCO stands for. We're gonna ask our guests here today what it's all about, what it exactly means, who's involved with it, and everything else. But I was aware for a long time now, actually, that the EU were going to be putting together an army. A lot of people have called that for years. They were calling it every time anybody mentioned the EU army, they'd say, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's just a political union. Nobody's going to bring about a European army." And voila, it's actually coming about now. Now I've known about this for several years because I watched some videos by a man called David Noakes. I don't know if any of you heard of David Noakes. He was an anti-EU campaigner for many, many, many years. And I've seen him on a show called Edge Media TV. I don't know if any of you have heard of Edge Media TV, but they've done some very, very controversial shows. And I say they had David Noakes on there, and he was blowing the whistle on all this because apparently all this stuff was rolled up into Foreign and Commonwealth Office documents, FCO, and then they put all these numbers after FCO in all these documents, and apparently it has all been there for us to know about if we viewed these documents. It's hidden in plain sight, as they say. So anyway, right, so what does PESCO actually stand for? Stav or PJ, would either of you like to come in and tell us what PESCO stands for? What is the acronym PESCO for? What does it mean?
Well, I can go if you've not got much to say, Stav.
No, it's maybe in that article. I can't remember what it means, but in a nutshell, yeah, it's a European defence, and that's not just army, that's navy, that's everything, like Jeff said. But if you've got what it actually means, go ahead, PJ.
It's the permanent structured cooperation.
Permanent structured cooperation. That's actually what PESCO stands for, is it?
Yeah.
Okie dokie. And so this is how many member states have actually signed up to this? Because I think there's about 27 member states, not including us, 27 member states in the European Union once we've left. So how many have actually signed up to this EU army?
On the 13th of November 2017, ministers from 23 member states signed a joint notification on this PESCO, and then they handed it over to the High Representative. I do believe it's 25 now. I could be mistaken, as I do believe UK is yet to join. So I think it's 25, but Stav could correct me.
25, so that's virtually every member then, bar a couple, out of all the member states. And did you say that England has signed up for it, or not quite yet, or they're sort of?
No, not as of yet. But where things are looking, I think it seems to be inevitable unless people manage to achieve something rather miraculous at the last minute. But we've got a few weeks left, not long at all now. So this is why I'm doing this talk tonight, to get this out there.
Right. Well, it's go on, Stav.
Yeah, sorry, I try. It is 25. I've got an article here. I don't know if you want me to read it or you can read it, Jeff. It's up to you. I can screen share it and PJ can put it up. And it gives you all what happened on the 11th of this month. Please, actually, of the 25 that were there at this meeting, behind the scenes was a certain Boris Johnson saying that he was there for a game of golf or tiddlywinks or playing with something in his pocket all day like he does, fiddling around. But I think on this day he was there with some other defence geezer. And we're not here for this at all. No, we're here for other business. Well, actually, I'm going to go game of golf or I'm going swimming in the new pool in the EU headquarters. I'm going to have a bar and pint and fart a lot. That would make more sense for what I am. But anyway, yes. So
25. I'll read it out for us then, Stav. Just scroll.
Yes, I'll scroll it down for you, Jeff. Away you go.
Okay, right, here we go. 25 EU states sign PESCO Defence Pact. The European Council has adopted the decision to establish a European Union Defence Pact, known as PESCO. The 25 participating EU states are set to begin working on a series of joint defence projects next year. Okay, scroll up then, Stav. European Union member states on Monday moved ever closer towards establishing a defence union after the European Council adopted the creation of a new European Defence and Security Cooperation Network known as PESCO. The Permanent Structured Cooperation PESCO, which was first set out in the Lisbon Treaty. I think that goes back to, if I'm not mistaken, 2001 or something like that. Or 2009, I think it was, will allow member states to jointly develop military capabilities, invest in shared projects, and enhance their respective armed forces. Read more. Can PESCO provide a new European identity? Well, that's a separate link. European defence ministers from 23 member states had initially signed a joint notification on PESCO on November the 13th. And handed it over for review to the EU's High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs, Federica Mogherini, and the European Council. I think I pronounced that pretty well, actually. That's a bit of a mouthful. Sounds Italian. Right, carry on.
That's her there. That's her ugly face.
Oh, that's ugly Federica Mogherini, yeah?
That's I think that's transgender. I'm not sure. But anyway, carry on.
It sounds almost federal, doesn't it? Federal Mogherini, because it's a federal super state. Yeah, that's the ideal name for her, I think. But scroll up a bit, Stav, and I can read the. All right, scroll down to the picture a minute and see what it says on the picture. Go back down a little bit.
What is the EU Defence Union, PESCO? Yeah, go on.
Defence Union, PESCO. Union within a union. With 25 of the EU's current 28 member states joining the Permanent Structured Cooperation PESCO, there seems to be a great deal of consensus among member states, but a few remain on the fence. The new defence union is expected to address immediate threats without having to rely on NATO for all of the EU's defence needs. Okay, and scroll up a bit. And that's it. Thank you, Stav. On December the 7th, Portugal and Ireland announced their decision to join, taking the total number of contributing members up to 25. The countries that have chosen not to take part are Malta, Denmark, which has special opt-out status, and the UK, which is set to withdraw from the bloc in March 2009. Sorry, it's my eyesight playing up there. Set to withdraw from the bloc in March 2019. Mogherini described the move as historic, while European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker hailed the move on Twitter, posting, "She is awake. The sleeping beauty of the Lisbon Treaty. Permanent structured cooperation is happening."
Tweet.
A tweet here from Mr. Juncker, or whatever, I call him Junk myself personally, but it says, "She is awake. The sleeping beauty of the Lisbon Treaty. Permanent structured cooperation is happening. I welcome the operational steps taken today by member states to lay the foundations of a European defence union. Our security cannot be outsourced." Outsourced. Well, sounds very nice, doesn't it? Sleeping Beauty and all the rest of it, until it's awake, and then no doubt it will become something not so beautiful, I would imagine.
Although they don't like Mr. Trump, and they don't want to pay him any money, you see, and they think they can Shanghai everybody else in instead, instead of NATO. But carry on, Jeff.
I don't think they want to live up to their NATO responsibilities then, by the sounds of it. So they'd rather have their own defence force and put their money into that. Put our money into that, I should say. The taxpayers obviously funding this. Although PESCO, all right, let's carry on. Although PESCO remains an intergovernmental programme, the Commission said in a press release that it will prop up the network defence fund. Money is set to be assigned for the acquisition of new defence equipment and technology, as well as to finance grants for research projects. She is awake, the sleeping beauty of the Lisbon Treaty, said Commission Chief Jean-Claude Juncker, referencing the 2007 reform agreement that serves as the basis for I think that's supposed to be the basis for the modern EU. I welcome the steps taken today by member states to lay the foundations of a European defence union. Europe cannot and should not outsource our security and defence. 17 joint defence projects. Officials have earmarked 17 joint projects that will fall under the scope of the PESCO agreement. These include establishing a pan-European military training centre, improving capability development, and even introducing common standards for military radio communication. Germany is to take the lead on 4 projects: the creation of a pan-European medical unit, a logistics hub, a centre for training missions, and an initiative to build up faster crisis response forces. Okay, up you go, Stav, please. A little bit. Initiative to build up faster crisis.
That's it on the side. Germany's to take the lead.
Those projects are expected to be formally adopted early next year, with participating countries also invited to propose additional programs. And it says PESCO EU paves the way. Is that a
That's it. That's it.
Right, okay. That seems to be all it. It doesn't say much about what these projects are, and is this going to, my question is, does this mean there is going to be war? Because some people believe, I mean, that David Noakes, what he said was, the EU is a military dictatorship, and whenever you get a military dictatorship, you always get war. And he believed the war would be somewhere in the Middle East. Well, I think we've been doing pretty good in the Middle East as it is over the last so many years, what with Iraq, Syria, and all these countries. So, the question is, does this mean we're going to have more war? Well, I can't see them. I mean, my attitude is, if you build bombs, you're going to use bombs for something or other. Same as weaponry and armies. I mean, there's got to be some obvious idea of what they're going to use it for, pre-planned, I would say, as this has been a long plan in the making. This is not a sudden thing. A lot of people think because we've only started hearing about this in the last year or so that this is only a year old, but in fact it's a very, very long-term plan that's been going on as far as I'm aware.
Well, you could actually say, without sort of pulling it back, 1,000 years plan, actually, because originally, well, do you know the word EU is union, isn't it? Or, you know, Europe.
Right.
I'm going back to that time. It's my favourite spot in history because everything stems from it as far as I'm concerned. In 1066, before William the Conqueror came over, he had the his area was called Normandy, as we know, which was given not to him but by his great grandfather, which was a Norwegian Viking known as Rollo. And he would take that part of the land, done a deal with the Frankish king at the time, keep the rest of the Viking raiders away. They intermingled with the local Frankish people and they became these Normans.
Right.
In that area of the department of Normandy, in that area, 60 years before William was born, right, his grandfather, Robert, Duke of Normandy, right, there was an area called EU, an actual town called EU there.
I didn't know that. I mean, the EU was before we called it the EU. It was called the EC, which is the European Economic Community.
Yeah, but it was actually a French zone, French area, French department, as they called it, back then, which they named EU, capital E, and you know, a lowercase u, EU, and it's right on the coast, right? And it's in Normandy. Now, even 60 years later, the Duke of Normandy, William the Conqueror, he actually got married in the church there. And anyway, long story short, we were all part once the conquering monkey came over, and you know, we were part of Normandy, and England became the same, and other areas of France and Italy too, and actually all the way down to Antioch and the Caliphate area of Syria. Parts of that was Norman held. A lot of people don't know that.
Antioch is real, is it? I thought it's where they made the holy hand grenade, wasn't it, or something? Or is that...
Antioch? They call it an area. I can't remember the rest of it now, but anyway, all through there and all the way down through the Balkans, etc. Norman people went all the way down there. You see, so it's a lot more vast than a lot of people would think, and England was part of that empire. Of course, centuries later, it all fell apart. 100 Years' Wars, the barons fought each other, and it all started to disintegrate and whatever. But is the re-establishment of those across there, the Manche area, which is Normandy, Manche, but actually in the EU they have maps of England, and along the south coast there we are called in with them Manche.
And that's what I've heard about this. This is the new EU zones that were planned for England. Which encompasses the southwest of England and France, I believe.
Well, anyway, from 1066 onwards, all of your royal blood comes from Norman stock, foreign. Okay,
right.
So I've done a lot of dot joining. I won't go on about it tonight. We'll have to do a whole different show about it. The reason why the people that are up there pulling the strings, right, is because of this connection to these elite DNA related people. And it goes, and I'll give you another. We'll do another thing with PJ or whatever, and I'll link the whole lot up with you one night. And it's nothing, you know. Once 1066 came along, that's when England died. A lot of people don't realise that, but you know, that's when the Normans took over, and England died then. I mean, people
digress.
I digress.
We digress a little bit.
So,
I was actually. I just want to make the point that I was joking about the Holy Hand's Grenade of Antioch. That was a scene out of Holy Grenade,
yeah,
which was
yeah, Monty's.
A silly joke, but yeah,
No.
I can see these things have gone back a very, very, very long way.
But I'll digress, like PJ says, and with this EU army business up to a certain date before we lose everybody, if there's anybody there listening. Well, this has been on the cards for quite a long time. I've got another article if you want me to put it up. It's from 2011.
Well, yeah,
well, I've got an article as well, so I'll let you go first.
Okay, PJ. I was going to say, because Stav's put one. Stav goes next, yeah?
There we are then.
Let's have yours next, PJ, if you want to put it up on the screen.
Yeah, no worries. Just going to share my screen. Bear with me, guys. Right, I've took it off of you, Stav, and I'm going to put it on me. All right, just let me know if you can see this, guys. Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it out. Yeah, we can all see that. It's boost our troops. Cause
all right.
Treason.
I'll read it if you want, Jeff. It's all right for you.
Oh, okay. Go for it, PJ. Go for it.
All right, no worries. Just try and mute up for echo's sake. So it's from Express. It's 21st of December, Thursday just gone. It's the latest news article that I can seem to find if you Google PESCO. And it talks about, well, it titles it, Boost Our Troops. Calls for Theresa May to build bigger army to underpin Euro security. So Britain must spend more on its armed forces and defence to underpin European security, it has been claimed, despite the UK preparing to leave the EU. So many people who's listening is probably thinking, well, what's the point in talking about it? Well, Brexit's happened, it's going through. Just get on with it. This PESCO don't matter. Well, let's read them. James Rogers is a founding member of the Henry Jackson Society and the director of Global Britain Programme, said increased defence spending will help underpin European security. He called for Britain to increase spending to at least 3% of its GDP over 5 years. Speaking exclusively to the Express, Mr. Rogers said, the UK is a European power and underwriter of NATO and thus European security, but it also has a global perspective. Defence spending should be increased to at least 3% of the GDP, albeit gradually over a 5-year period. This will give the UK the third largest defence budget in the world and provide the armed forces with the means they require to underpin European security. But as Britain prepares to leave the EU, suggestions the UK should help underpin European security have sparked fury. Okay, so I'll just pause here because with all these talks that Theresa May is having and about this divorce bill, I'm thinking, is this got any connection to it? I mean, is this included in this divorce bill, or is it actually managed to get it a bit cheaper for some stuff that we, start to deal with once we're out? Who knows? But I just thought I'd raise that as an interesting thought. UKIP MEP Mike Hookham told Express that although the UK has obligations to the defence of our European neighbours through a long-standing commitment to NATO, Britain should steer well clear from any commitment to the so-called EU army of 23 EU member states, known as PESCO. Mr. Hookham of UKIP said, limiting the UK's commitments to those who we are obliged to honour through our NATO commitment, it especially is necessary due years of slashing cuts, underfunding and disastrous mismanagement of our armed forces. A rise in defence spending would project a message that the UK is equipped and ready to meet future defence demands, whatever they may be. So perhaps getting a few jets for his, his aircraft carrier. Do you think that's that's a good call. Who knows? UKIP MEP for Yorkshire and the Humber said, the UK's ability to project power will also be a crucial area of expansion in the post-Brexit era. He said, the UK must be ready and able to defend its interests both at home and abroad, and as sovereign, independent nation. The warning of defence spending follows Labour's Shadow Defence Secretary Neil Griffith, who claimed earlier this year the UK's spending on defence had fallen below 2% of GDP in 2016. The International Institute for Strategic Studies, the IISS, has provided a figure of £38.3 billion for UK defence spending in 2016, putting the ratio to GDP at 1.98%. That's falling short of the government's target of 2%. In 2016, Britain was ranked 7th in a league table of defence spending after US, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, India, and France. Mr. Rogers said the extra cash should be spent on more troops and better technology to help NATO. He said the UK needs to ensure it has a larger army to underpin its commitments to the eastern flank of NATO, where it already has sizable tripwires garrisoned to prevent Russian miscalculation. Cyber capabilities are critical, but so are direct energy weapons, which could revolutionise warfare in the same way as gunpowder did in the 15th and 16th centuries. Mr. Rogers said, it is time to increase spending to meet the challenges of global uncertainty and capitalise on opportunities in the Indo-Pacific regions. So yeah, Jeff, I'll pass it back over to you for your thoughts.
Well, thank you for that, PJ. Yes, is it a waste of money? This is the question. They're going to increase defence spending, and I know Britain is one of the largest arms producers in the world as it is. America, UK are well known for spending an awful, or producing an awful lot of arms, I should say. It's one of our biggest industries. And I know you've got all these big companies in America that are heavily involved, like is it Halliburton and what's that other company? I can't remember the name now. Something beginning with C, I think. Yeah, I don't know if I mean, why do we need an EU army? To me, standard military warfare is now a sort of thing of the past in a way, because we've got weather weapons, directed energy weapons, and you've got electromagnetic pulses, things that can wipe out the entire electrical infrastructure of a country, and so on and so forth. So I think probably it's a waste of funds that could be used more practicably. I mean, what have we got really in? I mean, they call this defence. To me, this is not defence. This is offence. If you're building weapons, it's for offence. It's not defence. My interpretation of defence is having anti-aircraft guns and anti-this and anti-that, but we don't seem to have that. The only thing we have got is a deterrent, which is also an offensive weapon, which is Trident, which is our biggest deterrent in this country. So, I mean, what is it all about and why? This is the question you have to ask yourself. Why are they actually wanting to make this massive defence, well, so-called defence force? I think they've lost the terminology a bit there. It's like nowadays, I mean, we haven't needed defence as such for since blooming 1066. So, you know, the Battle of Hastings. I mean, when was the last time Britain was invaded? That's the way I'm looking at it. You know, 1066, something like that. So, you know, there's the, you know, being able to discern between defence and offence is two separate issues as far as I'm concerned. They seem to have lost their they've lost their way in discerning that difference. But I don't know. Is it necessary? Do we need it? Have they got a plan for it? Are they just going to use it to continually invade Middle Eastern countries and blow the living smithereens out of them for the sake of? I don't know why they do it, to be honest. It's beyond me. It's just one war after another with NATO. Whether it's going to be the same with the EU. I mean, you could have double trouble, couldn't you, with NATO and the EU, basically obliterating the living daylights out of all these Middle Eastern countries, and for what? Why do they need to do it? Is it just a case of overthrowing governments and consolidating power and putting their own leaders in the places of these so-called Middle Eastern dictators, which is debatable, but it could be just a case of wanting the whole world under one global authority. That's what I'm thinking. It's all about, to them, it's all about centralization of power. And of course, there's only and this to me goes back to the banks, because every war is a banker's war. That's the way I look at it. The banks are behind all of this, I would say, because they fund both sides of wars, and they basically, I mean, what better thing for business than to blow the smithereens out of a country, make them pay reparations for the debt, and have to rebuild their countries. So then because they're totally broke, they have to go then for a loan at interest, usually to a big central bank, probably owned by the Rothschilds, and keep them in perpetual debt and slavery and debt slavery. So this is what I think it's all about. It's all linked, but this is my personal opinion on it. I could be wrong, but what do you think, Stav? What do you think about the banking industry behind it all?
Well, with this whole PESCO, EU, United States of Europe, I just think is all bollocks. And the reason, just taking in tonight's subject, PESCO and the European Military Union. I mean, that's all about geopolitics and economies, and even Mr. Trump said the other night, you know, when his visit to oh crikey, I can't name the place, but it was basically where they make all the weapons and God knows what, big base. And at the end of it, he said, of course, he said, we were very depleted, isn't that right? To what's his name, Mad Dog, what's his name, Mattis. And he said, yeah, sure. He said, well, we're going to build it up and we're going to make it bigger and better. And of course, he said at the end of it, what it means for all you people and many more is jobs. So I think the EU is exactly the same. It's a way of using leverage in a geopolitical war, which keeps people enslaved and jobs. You know, so that's what I think. And the reason why I think it's a lot of bollocks. I'll share this screen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is a bit X-rated tonight. Are we past the watershed? What is it? 9 o'clock. Oh, bollocks.
Don't worry about it.
A legal term too, but let me share this with you and I'll tell you the reason why I think it is.
Well, I'm personally a person to call a spade, so if you want to say it's bollocks, you go ahead and say it's bollocks. I mean, I think you're probably on the right tracks there, to be honest, mate.
Okay, well, look at this. Have you got, is that showing the Telegraph?
No, it's not showing at the moment.
Yeah, put it up.
Okay, it says here, Russia unveils Satan II missile, powerful enough to wipe out the UK, France, or Texas. Yeah, look at this great big flying penis. Russia has released the first image of its nuclear missile, a weapon so powerful nearly all of the United Kingdom or France. One missile, yeah? The thermonuclear armed ballistic missile was commissioned in 2011 and is expected to come into service in 2018. The first images of the missile declassified on Sunday and are now being published for the first time. As it will replace, excuse me, it's Christmas. RS-36M, the 1970s era weapon referred to by NATO as the Satan missile. Look at that. What's that hanging out the back of it? Nothing.
I think you're all
Christmas tree light.
Your audios it's breaking up a little bit there, Stav. I don't know what's going on with your audio. Are you getting him okay, PJ, or is it just me?
Same on my side. It says he's scrolling up and down his screen.
Right, sorry, I won't speak as I scroll. What was that right now?
No, it's still the same stuff.
Rid of that.
Stav, do you want to log out and then come back in, because it sounds like your audio's gone all springy sounding.
Well, right, let's get rid of them. How's that now? Any good?
Okay, okay at the moment.
Yeah, it's perfect. That.
Yeah, well, it's Miss Baroness Dildo's service. It's not very good, is it? You pay
Miss Baroness Dildo.
Dido. I said Dido. I don't know.
Miss Baroness Dido. Who's that?
Dieldo, innit? I don't know. I don't know who she is.
That joke.
But apparently.
Joke.
Well, that tells me that all of this is a load of nonsense, and it's just geopolitical warfare. It gives them something to say. Oh, we've got this jet, we've got that missile, we got this, and we got that. And there's a little man with a country called North Korea, and he's calling them everything. So yeah, let's put it into perspective. I think that's what that's all about. Because if Russia, but I can't remember, it was somebody on an interview the other night, Dr. Craig Roberts, said the European Union leaders and the leaders of Europe really need their brains testing if they think they can come up against Russia. They're playing stupid games. So I agree with him, because at the end of the day, I mean, they got to just fire one of those missiles and that's the end of us.
Yeah.
What we're going to do. So I think it's a geopolitical nonsense to keep people in jobs and paying GAX for them to slurp their champagne and party all the time. But there we are. That's my thoughts on that. I've got another article. I don't know if you want me to put it up, about the writing on the wall. I'll give it
I'll tell you, I'll read it if you like, because if you're having the microphone problems. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, if you like. I'm not sure.
While you're doing that, then I'll just interject to mention a bit of latest news. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un he said that the UN sanctions is an act of war.
Well, I think it probably is to a certain degree. I mean, but the sanctions seem to be a common thing these days, don't they? I mean, they've put sanctions on Russia. They've put sanctions on all sorts of countries in the past few years. It's not a very nice thing to do, to put economic sanctions, because you create more problems than you solve, I think, with a lot of these economic sanctions. It's just about waving their dicks in their faces and saying, well, you've got to abide by what we say, because we're the International Security Council. I think you've got five nations in the UN Security Council, which is the UK, Russia, China, France, and the USA. And we're the sort of hypocrites that like to tell the world how they've got to behave, and and dictate what happens. So basically, it's just getting them to play ball. And but carry on anyway, PJ. What were you going to say, mate? Well, Stav, do you want?
Stav's going to show his article. I guess I have got something I could probably mention. I did send you a link earlier. I'm not sure if you've still got it. It were about when Finland is a member of PESCO, and it showed you the graph with the countries, the states that was in whatever section it was, whether it was NATO, PESCO, or the European Union.
Right.
I don't know if you still have that, but that's a 3-minute video that we're going to play after.
What really worries me up, PJ, is the hypocrisy of the West. I mean, like North Korea wants to have its own nuclear deterrent. Now, in my opinion, if they've managed to create a nuclear deterrent, which has got X amount of range or whatever, I think they should. They're just as entitled to have a nuclear deterrent as any other country. But unfortunately, what you've got is the 5 members of the the UN Security Council seem to be able to dictate who can and who can't have that. So while they say, and they'll use this common phrase, which really gets my goat, is they'll say North Korea is a rogue state, Iran is a rogue state. All these countries that want nuclear power or nuclear bombs or whatever, they call them a rogue state. Well, wait a minute. Who was the first person to drop a nuclear bomb? I've heard that it wasn't in 1945 on Hiroshima. I've heard them say that the first nuclear bomb was done in 1908 in Tunguska in Siberia. And I think it was the Germans apparently that did that one. I don't know if that's right or not, but
do you want me to do you want to list these countries out that are part of which?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it, PJ.
All right, we'll do. All right, so these are the PESCO ones, the ones that have already agreed and signed up to it. It's Belgium, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Croatia, Estonia, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Austria, Cyprus, Finland, and Sweden. And the other ones that are in the EU that haven't yet joined are Denmark, Portugal, Malta, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. And there's several more that's part of NATO, and they are Albania, Iceland, Montenegro, Norway, Turkey, Canada, and the United States.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people go on about Europe as well, and they say the EU. They cite the EU as Europe, which is a very different thing, because what most people automatically forget is that although we've got 28 member states in the European Union, Europe is actually 54 countries. So only 28 of those 54 countries are actually in the European Union. So let us not forget that as well. But yeah, I mean, so it's basically every EU member state. So I mean, this is what they like to do. They call it harmonizing. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? Harmonizing, which means to spread equal rules across the whole of the EU federal super state, and everybody has to abide by what is written in these treaties. But of course, you do get the odd state that has special status, so they can get out of their obligations, so to speak. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's personally, I think it's a load of old crap. I don't know why they need that. I think we could solve a lot more of the world's problems without devoting such large amounts of funds into these rotten projects.
Exactly, yeah, that's it. But well, there must be some sort of logic to it that they've got that we're not aware of.
Well, there's obviously
can't make a detail of what they're doing. It don't make any sense.
There's obviously some methods in their madness, isn't there, PJ? But it's not for necessarily us to know, is it?
No. I'm gonna play this 1-minute audio. It's like a recap for the show for those that have tuned in halfway through. And then after I've done that, Stav, if you want to get your screen share up, ready for your article, We'll give that a blast. I'll play this anyway.
Go for it, PJ.
Representatives from all but 5 European Union member states just signed on to a cooperative defense pact. The Permanent Structured Cooperation, PESCO for short, is designed to streamline European defense research and spending. In total, 23 countries have moved to join the pact so far. This agreement wouldn't create a European army. Rather, members agreed to increase defense spending and develop joint military capabilities. The intended result is to cut wasteful spending on duplicative projects and make joint operations more effective. European powers are trying to figure out how to deal with Russian aggression at a time when the US and UK are focused on issues at home rather than abroad. Russia recently conducted one of its largest displays of military force since the end of the Cold War along its eastern border with Europe. Experts said the drills were designed to mimic a conflict with the US and its NATO allies. European forces involved in the PESCO deal would ultimately work alongside or separately from NATO. The new Europe-centered pact differs from the Atlantic one in that there is no binding call for collective defense and individual nations maintain control over their forces. The pact has to be formally ratified by leaders of each member nation. That's likely to happen in mid-December.
There you go. Over to you, Stav, with your article.
Can I just pipe in with something there, PJ, before Stav goes?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
This all started as a simple trading arrangement. This is what the EU was supposed to, well, it wasn't supposed to be the European Union. It was supposed to be a simple trading arrangement.
EEC.
Among member states when it was called the EEC, the European Economic Community. So we've gone from that to a political union, which nobody throughout Europe voted for. Nobody wanted a political union, which became known as the European Union. And then it's gone from that to a military dictatorship, which is probably their plan all along. This is how much we're being taken the mickey out of, the people of Europe, because nobody signed up for this. The people that did sign up for something was for a simple trading arrangement originally. So basically, they've been taking the mickey right the way through and imposing what they want. It's never about what the people want, you know. And besides that, and when people have said no in a referendum of some sort or another, they've thrown the referendums back at them time and time again and said, keep voting until you give us the answer that we want. Any other answer is not valid. This is basically how they do it. They've forced all this crap on us, whether we like it or whether we don't bloody like it. Simple as that. Right, carry on, Stav. I just thought I'd say that and put in my tuppence worth.
Well, yeah, it's what it is. I mean, he knew. All the elites knew. All the politicians knew what it was really about in 1971. Right. A lot of people think decimalisation was, oh, this great idea. That was all part and parcel of it. It was already in plans with the Treaty of Rome long before that anyway. So all the politicians and the elites and the scumbags knew what it was all about. But the people didn't. As usual, the people were conned. EEC. Yeah.
We're like mushrooms, Stav. We're just mushrooms, mate. We're fed crap and kept in the dark.
And that's oh, in actual fact, to be fair, I did speak to a French fisherman on a forum in 2010, and when I exposed the Bruges papers where it was all written down and everything, and he went, well, and of course man, did you read that? It was all a con from the word go. And this French guy, I said, well, you ignorant Anglo-Saxons. Dude, I mean, all us French people knew what it was about from the get-go. You know, like, oh, it's rubbish. Right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm just moving on.
I was just going to say stuff. Sorry, I was just going to say that I don't think the average person throughout Europe did know what was going to go on, to be honest. I mean, Edward Heath, when he took us into the European Union, kicking and screaming, he said there would be no loss of sovereignty. Well, that turned out to be a big lie, because the European Union is a military dictatorship with the laws of the police state, which they've imposed on our country and every other country. And what annoys me about what's going on with Brexit is they haven't even mentioned removing all these laws. If we're leaving the European Union, should we still be in the police state that they formed, or should we go back to pre-EU legislation, which is what I think should have happened? But they didn't even mention that. Theresa May has just said, we're going to take all these European directives and basically chuck them into our melting pot of legislation called the statute rule. So they're just going to take all the EU rules, stick them on our statute rule, and then they said they're going to unpick them one by one if there's people don't.
Bullshit. You see, it's not a question. It's not a question of us leaving the EU or us remaining in the EU. They're bringing the EU here.
Yeah,
right? And all of that, right? There's one clause.
It's not just that. Don't forget this PESCO.
There's one clause.
This PESCO brings it all. It brings NATO. It brings UN. It brings everything, and it could be on any part of land, on any soil, at any time, whenever needed. And you don't know who's going to turn up. You don't know how many foreign-speaking people are going to be coming up to the front of your door one day, telling you a load of commands that you can't understand. You ain't got you.
Yeah, well, how it's going to unfold, I think, it's only my opinion, PJ, apart from this European Union, military alliance and all amalgamated together, is when they do this Article 50 or whatever it is, and they do the Repeal Act or whatever it is, and they bring these laws over and mull them over. You ain't mulling over nothing, because one they're bringing in, tell you about much, is that we will have to say yes to any future EU laws that are brought out. So it wipes them all away. It wipes them all away. It doesn't matter what they can argue about in Parliament. That matters nothing, because they can bring out a new law and rename these more and more to come, and we've got to accept it. Well, we haven't got to accept them. That's what it's going to be, right? And before that happens, what this lot of traitors up in Westminster will do is they'll say, well, the Article 50 is now done and dusted, and we've implemented these laws that we hammered out, hard work in Brussels, right? And now, but to seal it, we're going to make sure that we are sovereign. We're going to bring out, and we're going to put it all in our new British Bill of Rights.
Right.
And that's the Constitution gone. That's all your ancient customs and laws gone. That's everything gone. There's no redress after that. You can pick up your Magna Carta and say, Article 61, that's all gone.
Well, another thing I've noticed is that they say, I've noticed they've been saying this a lot lately. They've been talking about sovereignty, and they've been talking about the British Parliament being sovereign. Well, wait a minute. What they've gradually doing is trying to get us used to the idea that they're sovereign. No. We're supposed to be the sovereign, the British people, not bloody Parliament. Parliament are servants. They're not sovereign at all. They are basically told by us what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. They should be representing our wishes, not their own bloody wishes. But apparently not anymore. Apparently they're sovereign now, not us. So there you go. They're trying to
well, yeah.
Well, it was meant to be for will it people, weren't it? But we're obviously bugs just crawling around.
You never had the will of the people before, after 1066, because all of these charters and constitutions, even Magna Carta, is a Norman charter.
Well,
it's not English.
That figures.
A lot of people will probably disagree with me on that, but the barons running me, 24 out of 25 were Norman barons.
And the other one,
of course,
one was the Anglo-Saxon, wasn't it?
He was the only one, and he happened to be the Lord Mayor. So you go figure that one. Yeah. And we know that all of this nonsense, right, and it is nonsense. The banks will never, ever be part of the EU, because they can't be part of the EU, because they're undemocratic. They're undemocratic. They cannot be accepted within the EU because they're not democratically elected a borough.
I think it's them that own everything. I think it's the banks that own the European Union, and the European Union is just a corporation, basically. That's another way of looking at it. I mean, the USA.
Yeah, it's the same, but it doesn't include that. That doesn't include us.
Well,
doesn't include us, does it?
Well,
You know,
the way I look at it, Stav, is this: anything with full caps is a corporation. So you've got the United Kingdom, that's not a landmass, that's a corporation. England is a landmass. Scotland's a landmass. Wales is a landmass. America's a landmass, but the USA is a corporation. The EU member states are land masses, but the EU itself is a corporation. Anything with full caps is a corporation. So that's the way I perceive it. And these corporations, they're probably owned and funded by the banks, and they dictate the policy to the governments that they want implemented. That's the way I would perceive it. I might be wrong on that. But
well, at the end of the day, Jeff, it all means that, you know, the people that think they vote for are just backstabbing foreigners, really, when it comes down to it. For the English people, or what's left of the English people now on this island. You know, like I say, I think it died in 1066, but there you are. I've got my own theories on it all. I
think it goes back a very, very, very long way indeed. Absolutely.
And it's very, very controversial, and a lot of people would be angry with that. But all I say is go and do your own research. You'll find out that one baron that Runnymede, who was Anglo-Saxon, he happened to be Lord Mayor of London. Right, his name is William Hardell.
Right.
And you go and check the name Hardell out. It's Anglo-Saxon, so I don't have to say any more about that. They can go and check that themselves. And that was for the city to keep its ancient customs and laws, which was Anglo-Saxon. That's why the Mile in London is not part of the charters or any of it. You know, because it was allowed to stay as it was, and it will stay until whenever. And they can pass laws and whatever, and that city will never be part of any European Union because it can't, because it goes against their own rules. That in the EU, only countries that have got a democracy and their governments are democratically voted in and apply for membership of the EU. The City of London cannot.
Right. I think you're probably right there, Stav, to be honest. I mean, this stuff goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. I will say something about these people. They are nothing if not patient. They're very, very patient people. They don't care how long it takes, as long as they gradually. It's all done very, very slowly, very, very incrementally, and we're like frogs in the proverbial boiling pot. They gradually raise up the temperature over a very, very long period of time, very, very slowly, so we don't jump out of the pan and panic. So we don't, and we end up boiled to death rather than jumping out of the pan. So this is what they.
Oh, I got this last article now. Shall I get it up?
Show that article, and then it should be ready to close up, I think.
Yeah, well, I digress.
I have got a little video which I've just sent you, Jeff, on your Facebook. I don't know if you want to put your screen up and share the video to players, aren't we? After Stav's done his article, it's up to you.
Right. Okay. Which one? Got the EU debate one, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be the one.
Okie dokie. Well, I'll let Stav do his article first. I'm just going to go and get a light from my cigarette a minute, and I shall be back in a sec. Carry on, Stav.
Okay. Well, you can hear me, and I'm not. I think I'm off mute. Am I off mute, PJ?
Yeah, I can hear you. See, you're in everything.
Okay, fine. Yeah, okay. Because I didn't want to go back into the Hall of Mirrors. This is bringing it back. Which this is an article from 2011. I already knew what was going on back then, but obviously Joe Public didn't, because it's a thing from the Telegraph, the good old Telegraph, and it's Royal Navy pilots forced to learn French. This is in 2011. That there it is there, 12th of June 2011. Forced to learn French. Well, here's the reason why. The Navy aviators are training with the French, whose jets they may have to use while they wait the arrival of the new joint strike fighters, which are likely to be delivered before 2020. It's convenient, isn't it? 30 Royal Navy pilots have begun French language training at the Defence College in Paris before they join the carrier, where they will fly Rafale jets. They will spend 16 weeks studying French, so they are able to communicate with their colleagues on board. Parlez-vous français, monsieur? Ah, oui, oui. While they will wear their own uniforms, they will sleep, eat, and work alongside French fighter pilots. Described as a major test of cooperation of the two navies. A Ministry of Defence spokesman said the relationship with France is strategically important and discussions are ongoing about Royal Navy personnel based on Charles de Gaulle as part of the bilateral agreement between our two countries. This will allow us to maintain our skills and help to develop and enhance capability in the future. I want to become one in a European military combined, perhaps so. But naval forces have expressed some unease about the arrangement. One senior royal officer said, "Who would have thought that more than 200 years after the Battle of Trafalgar, we would be asking the French to train our naval fighter pilots? Our relationship with the French has always been a bit tense, so this will be a big test of our cooperation. One benefit," as the old English like to have a little bit of a joke about things, "one benefit for the Royal Navy personnel, however, will be the quality of the cuisine offered on board the Charles de Gaulle, which is said to be of a standard than the available British ships." And we are, PJ.
French food, snail.
I think it was already in place, and all this referendum nonsense.
Yeah.
And all that.
It's interesting you say that, Stark, because video that Jeff's going to play us out on was done before referendum, vote. And when I originally made that video, I thought, well, wait a minute, if this is all the thing that takes us to get out of all this EU army, then let's go for it. But we went for it, and still there's, seems to be other avenues that they've got where they can keep us into stuff. So, yeah, I'll agree with your summary on that, definitely.
Yeah. Well, over to Jeff with his video. I've brought the screen share off, hopefully.
Yeah, you have. Just need to get it up on your side, Jeff.
Okie dokie. I'm going to put that up for you now. Let's screen share entire screen. Here we go. And 1 second. Can you see that? Hang on. Where is it? Ah, here it is. Sorry, beg your pardon. There you go. Is this the one, PJ?
That's the one, Jeff.
Great. Okie dokie. Let's play this, and here we go.
I want the British public to have the fullest possible debate. They deserve to hear from businesses, large and small, about what you think. I don't want anyone to wake up on June the 24th and feel they weren't given the facts and the figures. If there's that little voice in your head saying, well, I shouldn't take sides, it's a political issue. Yes, it is a political issue. The British public are sovereign. They will decide.
40 years ago, it was...
Oh, hang on a sec. He said the British public are sovereign.
That's the key point. I wanted to just leave as a cliffhanger for the people, but you spotted it, Jeff.
That's the horse's mouth. So everybody take note. The British public are sovereign. Let it.
Well, yeah, Rees-Mogg took it even further in a debate just earlier this year. He said, the people are Lord Liege. Lord Liege.
What does
Well, they're the liege. They're in. We obey them. We obey them. They're Lord Liege.
Right.
That's what it means.
Play right.
You've seen the medieval films where he bends down the knight and he goes, "Ah, Liege, Lord Liege."
Right.
That's who we are. We're the king up in the seat, not them. But that's what Rees Mogg said earlier in the year. But I mean, carry on.
Dictating what happens, they should be listening to our. So the way they should listen to our voice is through some form of direct democracy rather than representative democracy, in my opinion, for us to have that voice. But still, anyway, I digress. Let's get on with the show. Here we go.
It was a common market. Now it's a European Union that wants an air force, an army, a navy. This is a dangerous fantasy.
The idea that there's going to be a European air force, a European army, it is simply not true.
The European Union should have its own army, says Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. The EU chief made the remarks to the German newspaper Welt am Sonntag. Juncker added that with its own army, Europe could react more credibly to the threat to peace in a member state or in a neighbouring state.
The rationale for Europe today is not peace anymore, it's power.
This week, the former head of British troops in Afghanistan said the Eurozone's elite's ultimate plan is to form an EU army out of the bloc's 28 member states. Retired British Army Colonel Richard Kemp said, if we left the EU, we would undermine the EU's ultimate plan of forming an EU army, and that is exactly what they are going to be doing.
The fact is, by Gordon Brown and David Miliband signing the Lisbon Treaty in 2009, the UK is already obligated to a common security and defence policy with the EU. And when you look at the structures already in place, it becomes increasingly clear how we are moving towards combined EU forces. The European External Action Service already has at its disposal the EU military staff, which functions as a high command, EU battle groups with battalion-sized forces that can be put into action at 48 hours notice, EU NAVFOR, which is currently operating off the coast of Somalia and in the Med, and the European Air Transport Command, which now controls over 60% of Europe's military transport and air refueling capability. And the process of integration has already started. Leaked draft proposals seen by the Financial Times set out German plans for a joint European command and widespread cross-border sharing of military units and equipment.
A secretive EU army is now taking form as the Germans have annexed the Dutch military.
The only way to stop this now is to vote leave on June the 23rd.
There's no evidence, hang on. There is no evidence that our military intervention in these countries is making life better. As I say,
that's
you
not
was
what
Deputy
Charles
Prime Minister.
That's not the question.
You was Deputy Prime Minister. We bombed Libya, and it's worse now than it was then. And the answer to Charles's question is, I don't want to be part of the European foreign policy.
The problem, but this is a dangerous fantasy. The idea that there's going to be a European air force, a European army, it is simply not true. The problem with people like Nigel Farage is they swing at windmills. Well, they see conspiracies everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Nigel Farage soon tells us that the moon landing was a fake.
I want people to speak
Stop
out.
that there, Jeff.
Right, that's it, folks. That's the article that PJ wanted me to play there. Yeah, I think they basically they've been taking the mickey right from the word go. These people, they've got absolutely no interest whatsoever in implementing the will of the British people whatsoever. And I think it was already done and dusted when we signed the final EU treaty, which was the Lisbon Treaty back in 2000, and I think it's 2009. Once it is all, I mean, basically the Lisbon Treaty rolled up all the other EU treaties into the Lisbon Treaty, which was the final, basically the final kick in the teeth for Britain. So I think once that was done, it's basically done and dusted. Everything would then be decided from then on by the European Union, and we'd have no say whatsoever. I think this exercise of Brexit is in name only. That's my personal.
He did say that the only way to stop this is, to vote leave, but maybe he wasn't right after all.
Well, I think we've been hoodwinked, to be honest, PJ. I think it's all been a sham. Everything's all been a sham. I don't think we ever had any intention for us to leave the European Union right from the word go. That's my personal opinion.
Well, I said to STAV, I didn't recognise that, me personally, that I was ever in an EU as such. So I wasn't able to vote anything to leave or remain because I didn't recognise it.
Well, if you didn't realise you were in it in the first place, you can't leave something that you believe that.
No, exactly. Yeah.
It was just basically an act of treason that took us in. Well, several acts of treason that took us into the EU in the first place. So it should all be null and void, as far as I'm concerned, right from the get go. That's my opinion as well, PJ. To be honest, but we did vote to leave, so. Technically, what they should do, and I've said this all along, is they should basically take all the repeal the 1972 Communities Act, which would finalise our Brexit departure from the EU, because once you've signed repealed the 1972 Communities Act, you cannot go back into the EU, which you can do under the Article 50. Yeah, under Article 50 you can go back in, but with the 1972 you cannot. So what they should do is repeal it as fast as possible, tear up the treaties and throw them where they belong, in the waste paper basket. That's my personal opinion. Once that's done and dusted, we can become an independent nation state again, sovereign nation state, and start trading with the rest of the world. That's what I would have liked to have seen. I'm pretty certain that's what Nigel Farage would have liked to have seen. And on that video, did you notice as well about Nick Clegg lying through his teeth to the British public? Absolute barefaced.
What do you expect? He's a professionally paid liar, so you can't expect anything else.
He's also a Bilderberg. He was at the time the Bilderberg in the Lib Dems. You had 8 Bilderbergs in the Tory party, 8 Bilderbergs in the Labour Party, and the one Nick Clegg in the Lib Dems. And of course, a Bilderberg, the job of a Bilderberg is not to represent its constituent voters, but the job of a Bilderberg is to create the European Union. So there you have it. On that note, I don't know where.
Well, that and alongside Trilateral Commission, which is something else we could talk about another time.
Well, it's all linked, isn't it? You've got the Trilateral Commission, you've got the Club of Rome, you've got the Bilderbergs, you've got the Illuminati, and all the ruddy rest of it, and they're all tentacles of the same beast, which, to me, has the banking sector right at the middle of it, dishing out all this sort of nonsense. I think it's down to the bank. It's all, to me, it's down to the banks. That the private central banks own everything, and then you've got at the centre of the central banks, you've got the central bank of central banks, which is the Bank for International Settlement in Basel, Switzerland. And of course, Switzerland never gets involved in any wars at all. Have you noticed that? They're always neutral. They don't get involved. Well, there you go. That must say something about how much power they've got. So, yeah, I don't know, PJ. It's all a dirty web they weave, isn't it?
Liz.
I don't
Any
know.
final thoughts, Stav? I'm all done. I'm all finished on my side. Anything from you?
Any final words there, Stav?
Nothing that you don't really already know, guys. And that's just, you know, you said they lied. They've been lying for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
They lie. That's their job, to lie. That's why there ain't no such thing as, well, democratic system. Why on earth would anybody want to vote for another liar?
Well, there's an old saying, Stav, if you want to know if a politician's lying, you just have to look at his mouth. If his lips are moving, he's lying. I think that sums it up. Okay, I think
we can bring up people can bring up glorious constitutional papers and things from the past, and good kings, bad kings, good queens, bad queens, up the Declaration of Rights and the English Bill of Rights, and this William of Orange. Well, William of Orange, just for anybody who's listening, wasn't such a fantastic guy, really, because he was the one who lost the battle against France with his mates, Holland and England, and decimated our navy, and then enslaved us to the banks with the first loan to the bank from the Bank of England for £1.7 million, and we're still paying it off. So, good, nice one, William. Good man he was. So, all throughout, everything is put in place for their agenda. Even everything you think is a good thing that you can go back in history and cling to and say, we got some hope there. You find it's just part of the plan of pushing you somewhere where they want to push you anyway in the end. And the EU is no different. I tell no lie. EU, go and look it up. It's in France, EU. But there we are. Chris, thanks for the time. And I think we put something half decent together, even though it was a bit confusing and jumbled up. And I went sidetracking into history as usual. People want to go and find it and look it up for themselves. Don't believe me, go and have a look yourself. And there we are.
It's all relevant stuff. I mean, ultimately, their plans are very long. They're very long-winded and they're very slow. And they don't give us big, hard pushes in any direction. They give us lots of little, gentle nudges. And
yeah, that's right. And people say
time to pass for us to get used to them so that we can just forget about them and accept them. And then they bring in another little nudge and another little nudge to get us where they want us, effectively. So I think
well, people often ask me, Jeff, Stav, why are you a political atheist? I say, go and have a look in history.
Well, I think most of us should be political atheists by now. The ones that aren't are still thoroughly fast asleep, in my opinion. But
we suffer from this amnesia. Well, I don't, but not anymore. No, I think I only voted once in my life, and I can't even remember when that was. I think I was drunk at the time.
A sort of historical amnesia. We should learn from history, shouldn't we, Stav? I think you're absolutely right. I think that's where
it's all there. You can see the deception and the way the system pushes you one place to the other.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong. If the people ever did rise up, and I'd be there with a pitchfork for the people, with the people. But just like the peasants' revolt with Wat Tyler.
I think that's the way anything's ever going to really change in this world, is up to us to take control. Because it's not. I mean, if we're going to wait for Jesus to come back, or if we're going to wait for aliens to come and save us or something, we're going to have a long bloody wait, and don't hold your breath. That's my opinion, personally, Stav.
Yeah, and a little bit about Wat Tyler. Apparently, the guy who ran him through his side when he was meeting with the king was none other than the Lord Mayor of London. So there we are.
Right. Well, that shows.
So you go and work. People can go and work it out for themselves. I'm sure they know where I'm coming from, but that's history. I'm only coming from history. It might seem a bit jumbled up to people at times. That's just that. If I was to try and tell you all the dots that I've joined up, you'd need a a 2-week program solid for me to sort of get anywhere. But you've got to go and look for yourself. That's what people
about
do.
the present. We need to know about the past, and to do
It's very important. It's very important. But you know,
important. But
if people want to stand up,
you have to recognise that there's two basic histories. There's the official version of history, and then there's the real history. So they've got to wade through all the. People have got to do their own research, their own due diligence. They have to read between the lines, and they have to discern the difference between the official history of what we were told and what we're supposed to know, and the real history. And I think that's where we get into how we can determine what's going to happen in the present or in the future, you know. And anyway, I think we've covered enough ground tonight. So I don't know whether you want to. Do you want to tie it up now, Stav, PJ? Any other?
Yeah, let's talk.
Well, you know, can I just leave it one final thought?
Go for it.
Right, one final thought is it's all immaterial anyway, the EU, in my mind, because I think they're going to be gobbled up by China and Russia with the One Belt, One Road, the gold certificate dealing in oil, gas, and all the utilities, which have already done deals. All of the gold has gone to the east, and that area, by the way, that's where it's all gone. So, I mean, go and look into that. But what people can do is decentralize yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that means, just Google it. You can start to do something yourself individually. And, you know, people think it's a long shot, but, you know.
Take the power away from the banking industry. I think that's the best thing anybody can do.
That's right, because I think in the not too distant future, you will be living in a decentralized society anyhow. So that's what I think. I could be wrong. Anyway, cheers, Jeff. Cheers.
Yep.
The final thought on the matter from me is, well, you've got to look into what happened with the Soviet Union, which was virtually the same as the European Union. Not a lot of difference. That collapsed eventually. This might last a little bit longer, the European Union.
Everything's collapsed, Jeff. Every civilization there's ever been has all fell and gone. So EU's no different. That's going to go as well.
Empires, PJ, you're right. All these big empires have all gradually fallen apart. It's in a constant.
Well, allegedly, some morphed into others, but we'll not touch on that. Cheers, Jeff.
It's all transitional, isn't it? It's all transitional. It's all in a state of continual change. So we've yet to see how long this is all going to last. Hopefully, us leaving the European Union, if it's going to happen, will be the first nail in the coffin of this foul abomination called the European Union. And hopefully other member states will take the same initiative with any luck. So anyway, thanks for a good show tonight, lads. I appreciate your input, and I'm going to roll it up tonight and wish everybody here a very, very Merry Christmas. Have a good time. Eat, drink, be merry, have plenty of fun, and we'll catch you all in the new year. Cheers, folks.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye, Stav. Bye, PJ.
Bye-bye.